water cannon on Philippine vessels near Scarborough Show.
Yeah, those are two separate incidents.
Two separate incidents, right, as your Chinese.
Yeah, look, I mean, they know where we feel about those issues. Obviously, we publicly expressed ourselves on the missile launch. It's a destabilizing event. And on what's happened with the Philippines, obviously we saw that too. The whole world saw it, and it's disturbing, and these challenges and these claims of sovereignty over territory are a growing challenge. It's why we continue to reiterate our commitment to our treaty partners, but also our commitment to freedom of navigation and respect for territorial rights in the region. And it's one of the cornerstones of our engagement in the Indo-Pacific, and especially via ASEAN. And I made that point in every forum that we've had here.
Sir, President Trump, he said on True Social that the U.S. is going to bomb and destroy a bridge or power plant every time that Iran targets a ship in the Strait. Is he talking about civilian infrastructure there? Do you think that is
this is what he's talking about. Iran is begging us, okay, both directly and indirectly. Let's do a deal. Let's talk. Iran is begging every day. The problem with Iran is every time they make a deal, the people that are in charge there, they either break it or they want to change it. So it looks like they're not ready to make a deal. So they're going to continue to pay a price. And every night the price gets higher and higher and higher. And that's what's happening now. And until maybe in a few days, they'll be ready to make a deal once they realize that this is not a winning proposition for them. And that's what the president is outlining. The idea that this is going to continue, it's not going to continue this way. The price will continue to get higher every single night until they come to their senses. Right now, apparently they haven't come to their senses. And so the president doesn't see a lot of utility in responding to their overtures at this point, because frankly, Iran is clearly not ready to make a deal, at least not one they're willing to live by.
But is he talking about
Secretary,
yesterday
you were saying you were hoping that there would be de-escalation in the Red Sea, and the Houthis now attack two Saudi ships. What is your reaction to that?
Yeah, look, I hope that they'll stop. They shouldn't really do that. They got suckered into this by the Iranians. The Houthis largely were smart and stayed out of all this throughout the conflict, but they now apparently have gotten themselves suckered into this, going after Saudi Arabia and their ships. And by the way, that's, I was reading reports a few hours ago that there is actually a Saudi fuel ship that's flagged Chinese. It's a Chinese ship. Are they going to blow up the Chinese ship? And this becomes a problem for China. This will become a problem for the whole world. But I hope that will de-escalate, because I think the Houthis, frankly, got snookered into this thing by the Iranians. And they were smart to stay out of it, and they should stay out of it, and they should stop. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, it's not a positive development. We'll see what happens.
Secretary, what prompted the easing of...
I'm sorry, man. I love his little court reporter thing. It's cool. Why didn't the rest of you guys have this? This guy's the smartest guy here. Look at that. I know he is. Better catch up. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, what prompted the easing of sanctions on Hong Kong last week in terms of letting the executive order expire?
Yeah, no, it wasn't easing of sanctions. The executive order expired. The conditions underlying some of those elements no longer existed. There remain other individuals that remain sanctioned nonetheless, despite the executive order is a partial expiration on certain individuals, but not on others. It just depends on the light of it. And, the justification and rationale behind that original executive order had the circumstances had changed in the president's judgment. But there are individuals, there's still a significant number of individuals in Hong Kong that remain sanctioned. That were not covered by the executive order, and that remains in place. And obviously that was raised with us yesterday, but we don't see a change anytime in the near future on that.
The second Russian readout of your meeting also once again mentions Anchorage proposals. Can you please clarify what those proposals are and how relevant are they today?
Yeah, there was proposals, we know they've been reported about. They call it 3+2, the trading of terror, but those failed. You can't have a peace deal unless both sides agree to it, and the Ukrainians would not agree to it. And so that's why that effort didn't work. So we'll have to find new suggestions and new ideas, because certainly that one, it was not acceptable to Ukraine at the time, and I don't think it's acceptable to them now either. In fact, it's probably less acceptable to them. So, when peace comes, it'll be because of some new idea and some new concepts. And we're prepared to offer some of those in the right setting and form if the opportunity presents itself and the conditions are right. We're prepared to play that role in a positive way.
So will the president make the strategy in assisting Manila in terms of putting more strategy in terms of the sites, in terms of freedom of navigation operations? Will you be conducting more of that soon?
Yeah, look, we're a treaty ally. The United States and the Philippines have a treaty, and so we will live by that treaty. We're committed to supporting our treaty partners, and obviously we've already done quite a bit. In fact, there was a U.S. Coast Guard vessel in the region at the time that this happened, and actually helped stand between the two sides and allowed the individual who was injured to be rescued and brought back for medical treatment. So we're already here. We're already present. We have a role, and we're not going to abandon our allies. We've made that abundantly clear. We're going to have a good relationship with China. Okay, these are the two most powerful economies in the world, two large militaries, two nuclear powers. We have to have a relationship with China. We want it to be as positive as it possibly can be. But that won't come at the expense of our allies and our partners in the region or our presence here either.
Sir, it's been a day since we asked you about the Saudi nuclear
Yeah.
agreement. Have you had it?
Well, let me refer.
look
No, but let me
at
refer you. I know that was in the press the last few days, but let me refer you back. I think it was in November of last year when the Energy Department entered into this agreement. So the details are there. Obviously, even when the official announcement is made, it will have to go through a congressional notification process, and then we can talk more in depth about it. But suffice it to say that the U.S. is always looking for cooperation agreements with allies. I mean, Saudi Arabia is a strategic partner of the United States, and I think, without speaking in specificity about that deal, but in general, we're not the only country in the world that offers nuclear technology. And when countries decide they want to pursue a peaceful civil nuclear program, we'd prefer them do it with us than do it with some other country. It allows us to have influence over the direction that it goes. It allows us to make sure that there are safeguards in place, things of this nature. And in the case of Saudi Arabia, they've been an important strategic partner for us. So it would make sense for us to enter into such an agreement. But obviously the details of it, once it's released, you'll see it, you'll be able to understand it. And more importantly, it'll go through its congressional review process, which is a key part of this, and so there'll be a lot more questions answered at that time.
Would you be comfortable with Saudi Arabia enriching and reprocessing uranium?
I'll let the agreement speak for itself. Suffice it to say that any agreement that we're going to make with any country in the world on civil nuclear energy is going to be one that will have safeguards in place to ensure that it can't be turned into a weapons program. And one of the best safeguards is to make sure that American technology and American companies are the ones that are involved in doing it. If, on the other hand, a country pursues nuclear technology with another country, well, then we don't really control those safeguards. So again, Saudi Arabia seeks to have a peaceful civil nuclear program. Other countries do as well. We have a similar agreement in place now with the UAE. And U.S. companies are the world standard in providing that. And so we are always looking for opportunities, by the way, not just in conventional reactors, but in small modular reactors, which is an area that we are increasingly around signing MOUs all over the world to help do as well. To countries that are exploring civil, peaceful nuclear energy, the United States wants to be their partner of choice. And we're always looking for opportunities to be able to make sure that our technology and our companies are the ones that are providing that. Does anybody over here have questions? Because this side is really lopsided. Go ahead.
The U.S. put sanctions on China's Moonshot AI for apparently distilling.
I don't have any announcement on that today. Go ahead.
If the Saudis agree to the additional protocol, it's sort of the gold standard. And if the administration is trying to stand up to say that non-proliferation is a problem in the Middle East, shouldn't that be the barrier?
Any agreement that we would make on civil nuclear energy with Saudi Arabia or any other country is going to have safeguards in place to ensure that those cannot ever be turned into a weapons program. I mean, that's the gold standard. And obviously, we live in a new era. There are competitors that we face, so we'll have to adjust individual deals to that reality. We're not the only show in town, but we're the best show in town. But we want to make sure that it's our companies they're picking. So again, we understand any deal we enter into with any country will have to go through a congressional review process. And so we will ensure that in order to get congressional approval, we're going to need to have those safeguards in place, whether they're structured differently how they are from other deals in the past or not will depend on the individual deal.
On Cuba policy, you said in recent...
I'm in Asia. You're asking me about Cuba. It's far.
But you said yesterday you're the main guy on Cuba policy, so we should ask.
No, I said I'm most of all. You guys were asking me a question about people that are involved in Cuba policy. Right. So no one's more involved in it than me. So go ahead.
This is a good question for you. So you said in recent months that the economic system can't improve unless there's a change in the political system. But you've been very vague about what that change in the political system would entail. Can you give us some more details with the Communist Party staying in power, but a different leadership, with the Castros still be in power?
So you want me to give you details on our plan?
Yeah.
Okay, not today. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you this. No, here's what I told you, and this is the truth. The people who are in charge of the country don't know what they're doing. They don't know. They don't know how to fix their economy. They don't know they don't understand basic concepts. And I think the challenge that Cuba has faced for the last 15 years is they want to somewhat improve their economy, but they're afraid that if they improve it too much, they'll lose political control over people. That's the challenge that they face. So I think for us, we are looking for an opportunity to influence the direction that goes, because it's 90 miles from our shores and we want Cuba to be prosperous. We want Cuba to be free. But in that sense, on the level of detail you're asking me, suffice it to say that As long as the people that are in charge think the way these people think and act the way these people act, it's going to be difficult for them to make the changes that need to be made in order for Cuba to have a better future. Because they just really, they don't understand it. Some of them are incompetent, and some of them just basically don't understand, and others are just so recalcitrant that they'd rather, destroy the country than ever walk away from a failed ideology. Although I think the number of people in that category is less than it's ever been. But for the most part, it's just people that don't know what an economy is supposed to look like. They really don't. And because they've always relied on foreign sponsors. That regime has survived on subsidies from the Soviet Union and then from Chavez. This is the first time they don't have a sponsor that's giving them subsidies for free. And they don't know what to do with themselves because all they've done is freeload off these countries for all these years. The people of Cuba deserve better than that. Did you have a question? Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the appropriate defense spending for allies like Japan and the Philippines?
What is my opinion on
defense spending? Appropriate defense spending.
Well, we've communicated that to them. But look, at the end of the day, I still think that, these are partners and allies, but we want countries to assume more responsibility for their own security. And for the most part, I think the countries in this region agree. And so the U.S. will continue to do its part. But by the same token, we're now, in many cases, dealing with advanced and wealthy economies who have the ability to spend more on their own defense. And they should. I think the primary responsibility of any government is the national security of their country. So, but I don't think it's a point of conflict between us and the region.
Another question.
Yes.
South Chinese, are you looking to at least step up this support that you've mentioned, especially near the Ayungin Shoal where U.S. Commission DRT Sierra Madre is stationed?
Yeah, look, again, we have a treaty agreement with the Philippines that we intend to keep. We have a treaty agreement with that we intend to live by. And we have had a long-standing defense partnership. We don't view that as a hostile act towards anybody. We view it as keeping our commitments to long-term allies with whom we have many shared values, shared history, and we hope shared future.
Venezuela, you said that next month, I think they're going to start this transition.
First week of August, yeah.
Yeah, between the interim government and
the 2015 Assembly.
The 2015 Assembly. Is there going to be a direct role for Maria Corina Machado and her opposition movement?
Well, that's up to the Venezuelans to decide. I'm sure she can play a role if they allow, if they want her to. The 2015 National Assembly is the government that we recognized up. That's the government we had recognized up until these changes when we have these interim authorities. But we think it's a really good development. In the end, I would say that in order for Venezuela to have the reconciliation that country requires to move forward on all these other projects, every element of Venezuelan society needs to be represented. And obviously, Maria Corina represents an important element of that. I mean, she's got supporters there and people that are supportive of her. And there are others as well. But a reconciliation process, we are there to facilitate it, not to dictate it. And we will certainly provide guidance and support in the direction that it moves forward. We think it's important for the country to do that. And there's a lot to work on. I mean, if you think about in a country like that, that's been under a regime now for 20 to 25 years, political parties have to transition from being street protest movements to electoral forces. You have to have a free and open press so you can communicate it. You have to have an electoral council that actually accurately count the votes. You have to have enough security in the streets to ensure that the ballot box is safe and people aren't being intimidated. There's a lot that goes into election, then creating the infrastructure for an election that really was not invested in for a very long time. And in some cases, they were hostile towards. So there's a lot of change to happen. But what requires is patience, persistence. We have to stay on top of it because these transitions do take some time. They don't need to take a decade or even 5 or 7 years.